Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another live chat. If you're new here, hi, my name is Laken, and I go live every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern to answer any questions that you have about goals, planning, whatever you are struggling with. I am here to answer your questions, and this is just one of my favorite hours every week. We talk about all kinds of random things. It's an opportunity for you to get to know me, for me to get to know you, and then also provide some on-the-spot practical tips that you can apply right away to whatever it is that you're working on. So let's kick it off with our first question that we always start with, which is, what are you drinking while we're hanging out today? I have my lovely iced coffee. I feel like I was working on the thumbnail before I kicked it off, and the iced coffee does not look near as good in the thumbnail as like a cute mug. But it's in the summer, it's just kind of necessary. Like, I'm just not having hot coffee at 1 p.m. in the middle of July. Like, it's just not happening. So if you are here live, say hello. Let us know in the chat what it is that you're drinking. And if you are catching the replay and are part of the replay fam, thank you for making the time to watch the replay. Let us know down in the comments what it is that you're drinking or what it is that you're doing while you're catching the replay. Okay. I don't see any comments. There we go. I was like kind of nervous for a sec that it was like a comment that was having an issue and I wasn't able to see the comments, but it looks like we're just a little quiet today, but also a smaller group because it's the middle of summer. And I know that like there are a lot of people that are all over the place in the summer and schedules are a little bit more complicated. All right. Lukewarm coffee, drinking water. I also have my water nearby. Andrea, Pepsi, but should be drinking water. Okay. So here's the thing. Like, you can do both, right? It can be a yes and. I think that a lot of us like think that it has to be one or the other. And well, yes, likely we all need to be drinking more water, especially in the middle of the summer. You can also drink all those other things that you want to drink too. A dirty iced chai. Megan, I've actually never had a dirty chai anything. I know what it is, but I've never actually tried it. Red Bull, coffee, chugging water after too many carbs yesterday. I know that feeling as well. Water and Diet Dr. Pepper, morning breakfast smoothie. Ooh, Aubrey, that sounds delicious. Maybe I want a smoothie today. I did buy the ingredients yesterday at the grocery store for a smoothie. All right, let's get to it. What questions do you have? What is on your mind? What are you struggling with? What do you need? What do you need help with? It can be something really specific that you are personally struggling with, or it could just be a topic that you want to talk about. If you can't figure out how to phrase it into a question, you could just put topic. And if you are catching the replay and you have a question, you can always leave it in the comments of this live and I'll answer it on next week's live, or you can submit it on Instagram. Andrea, I was just diagnosed with ADHD and explained so much about my struggles to set goals and do things. Do you have any suggestions for me? So obviously I am not any kind of medical professional, and there are likely lots of ins and outs of that diagnosis that I don't have any knowledge of that I'm able to give you specific recommendations. Based on my very, very loose knowledge of the like the traits or the struggles that someone with ADHD might have that would pertain to goals. I think for you, it's going to be number one, breaking things down in as small as possible. Your ability to focus on something like a step that's longer than a certain length is going to be really tough. So breaking it down into the smallest chunks possible. That way you get something done and then you can immediately pivot. I think also working on multiple goals at once. Now that it might sound counterintuitive because a lot of times I'm like, if you're overwhelmed, right, focus on one goal at a time. But for you, it's probably that you would just not do anything because that is way too much focus on one particular thing. So having the ability to pivot to different goals when you do lose focus. That way you're always working on something and making progress on some goal, but you're allowed to change your mind when you do lose that focus. I think as with anybody really, but having a place that you're writing them down. So A, you don't forget, and B, you can see that progress that you're making. You can see that tracking, I think would be really, really helpful here. Okay, Carrie, I see your question. I think you're finishing it in this one, so I'm just going to click on this one, but I'll come back to those that were asked above. Is there a good way to set a goal around not doing something? I'm trying to quit smoking and want some more accountability from myself. So normally, when somebody wants to quit something, I ask them, what are they filling that with instead, right? If you're quitting soda, are you filling that with water? If you're quitting scrolling on social media, what are you filling that time with? This is one particular example that there really is nothing that you're likely filling this kind of quitting with, right? You're quitting this, like I just thought of another good example, which is like quitting, extra junk food and replacing it with vegetables, right? But for this one, you're not replacing it with anything. So it really, and I don't like to put negative things down as goals, like don't do this, but that really is going to be the only option. I also, this again comes with like my lack of medical knowledge when it comes to this type of a goal. I think that normally I want people to scale back, right? So going back to the example of less soda, more water, I would want you to start with where you're at and slowly cut back. So if the goal was, I had a one-on-one client who was drinking 2 to 3 sodas per day. And so what we did, instead of immediately going to no soda or even 1 soda per day, we said, okay, you are drinking next week. The goal is 15 for the whole week, which is 2 most days, 1 day of 3. And it was a weekly goal. And she focused on that for the week. Then it was 14. And not even 2 a day, right? Some days there were 3 and some days it was 1. It was 14. Then it was 30, right? We worked our way back until she got to a number she was comfortable with. Because for something like soda, like I just said at the beginning, the goal doesn't necessarily have to be 0 for something like soda. If you like it and it makes you happy and you can hit your goals, your other life goals while consuming however much, the goal doesn't have to be 0. Now, for something like smoking, naturally, I am assuming your goal is to get yourself down to 0. So I don't know if that kind of gradual quit is going to be helpful. So, right, taking wherever you're starting now and cutting back and having X number per week or per day, and then until you get to 0, or if it is easier just to quit cold turkey, that is going to be something that I feel like is specific to smoking. I don't have the answer for. But I think getting recognition, like getting check marks when you don't do it, when you resist it, and the days that you don't have it, and then rewarding yourself when you hit certain milestones, certain number of days. Okay, Monica, struggling with getting back on track after being away. I did a whole video on this about getting back into routines after being away. The best advice I can give you is that you're not going to be able to do the whole thing. Your routine is a lot of steps, and the likelihood that you're going to do that whole thing that first day is going, even from just a weekend away, is going to be difficult. So focus on just doing something, doing one thing, and not just like letting it go on and on and on without routines, but don't put the pressure on yourself to do every step of the routine. Megan, when you did the color consult, if you don't know what she's talking about, I used a company called Created Colorful, where you sent in a bunch of pictures of yourself with different colored objects, clothes if you had them, but if you didn't, I used like books for some of the colors they asked for. And they tell you what colors you look best in for your skin tone, your eye color, what hair color, what makeup would look best on you, etc. I wasn't necessarily surprised with the results per se. I was surprised that there's like really no browns at all, like any kind of tan, brown, orange, any of that kind of family in my colors. So I do break the rules when I wear burnt orange for school things because that's not in my colors. The way it's affected how I shop is I just look at my colors especially when I'm at places like Old Navy and it's got the same thing in like 7 colors. I'm going to pick which color is the best. It hasn't changed all that much because most of the colors I got, frankly, I was not that surprised. Like I know these kind of jewel toned, this like pink, royal blue, red, emerald, those colors I've always known looks good on me. And so that, like, it just kind of solidified that. But I just kind of pull it out when I'm shopping and I'm like, okay, if I'm picking between these things. And then for the most part, I have not bought things that weren't my color. Like it would have to be like everything else about the outfit, the dress or the top or whatever it is has to be absolutely perfect for me to justify it. Otherwise, I'm like, it's not even worth it. Sometimes I won't even try something on if I'm like, that's really the opposite of what my good colors are. So I did not go through and like clean everything out. I just realized my closet is open slightly. That's going to drive me bananas. I did not clean anything out of my closet when I did it, but I'm just being more thoughtful as I shop now. I did not put enough protein shake in this coffee. This coffee is not sweet at all, which is fine. I'm like, normally if I go to a place, I just order like an iced latte with no sugar, but I was expecting it to be sweet and it wasn't. So, okay, surprise. Amy, I've recently started making sure every task on my list takes no more than 15 to 30 minutes. It's made such a difference. I'm more focused and getting more done. Yes. Everybody is going to be different about what that breakdown is. I've gotten that question before, is like, how detailed should I make the breakdown, right? Is it an hour? Is it 30-minute chunks? Is it 15-minute chunks? First off, there is no right answer. It depends on you. It depends on what your schedule looks like, right? Do you have an hour chunk of time? If you don't, then don't break it down. Like, you have to break it down more than an hour, right? And then the goal, different goals have different amounts. Like some goals, really, it's getting in the groove of things. And so doing something for only 15 minutes sometimes is counterproductive. So everything is going to be different. But if you are debating, I always err on the side of smaller, the better. Thank you for sharing. Andrea, I've been so good with my planner since November, but I haven't touched it for the past 3 weeks. I realized my setup wasn't working for me anymore. Any tips on figuring out how to restart? So first off, that happens. That is why when people talk about like planner piece, I think first off, for me, the definition is a system that you use. That's peace. If you're using it, it's peace. Second off, that doesn't last forever. And unfortunately for us and the way planner companies work, that transition doesn't always happen December to January or June to July, right? Sometimes that transition happens in the middle of a month and you're like, this system is no longer working for me. So first, you're not alone in that scenario. In terms of restarting, I would look at your setup and ask yourself, okay, what is working? What about this setup does work well for me? What isn't working? What do you need to change about it? And then how can you change it? Sometimes you can change it within the planner that you're using, right? You don't have to use a new planner. But sometimes you might need a new planner, and it's going to I want you to let go of the guilt, because if it is going to help you with other things, forcing yourself to use a system that doesn't work is not going to be helpful at all. There's a lot of free printables. There's a lot of other options. You can try things out to see how things work for you. But I would start with those 3 questions. Patricia, I don't know if you go by Pat. I'm going to go with Patricia until you tell me otherwise, which reminds me, if your YouTube name is something different than you prefer to be called, please include that in the question or comment. That way I can address your name. Motivation to get things done in the draining heat of summer happens every year. I don't come alive until the season changes. Oh, I feel you on this. I think everybody has a season, and it could be all of them, but really it's like usually summer or winter or both, where you just cannot. You cannot. So I first want to remind you that your progress does not have to be consistent throughout the entire year. I gave this example. I gave it originally on a live, and then I put it in a video, and I can't remember what video it was at this point. But the concept of running a race. If you think of somebody who's running a marathon, they're running 26.2 miles. Let's say they have a 10-minute mile. So they're averaging 10 minutes per their total time was 262 minutes to run this whole marathon. That does not mean that they ran a 10-minute mile perfectly for 26.2 miles. It means some of the miles were lower than that. I don't know how low. Like, I don't know if a 10-minute mile, I'm clearly not a runner, right? I don't know if it's like your best might be an 8-minute mile. But then there's going to be miles that are slower, and you're slowing down a little bit. Maybe you stop to get a drink of water, or you walked for a bit and you're doing a 12-minute mile, right? But you average out at 10. The same thing is true for the year. So there might be times of year, whether it's the summer or winter or whatever it is for you, back to school, end of school, where your progress is going to be slower, and that is okay. So I think the biggest thing here is letting go of the mindset that you have to make the same amount of progress in the heat of summer that you made the rest of the year, because that's just not the case. And so accepting that your progress is going to be slower in the summer. Then, in terms of practically working on things, motivation is not going to come. It's going to come from momentum. I have a whole video on that. And the way that you get momentum is by taking action. So the way that you're going to take action is asking yourself, okay, what are the tasks that I can do in the middle of summer, or I do enjoy doing in the heat of summer? Most of the time, my guess is they're going to be inside tasks, right? And it's kind of funny. Well, I don't actually know, depending on where you live. If you live somewhere where it is like miserable, Texas, Arizona, Vegas, like you probably are like, yeah, I want to be inside, because you either have to be like inside or inside water. So inside activities, right? If you're not in one of those super hot places, maybe it's outdoor activities. All of your goals are outdoor type things that you do and enjoy the weather in the summer. But what are the things that you can do or like to do in the summer, and try and center your goals around that? Break them down, small steps, start taking action, and the motivation will follow that momentum. Nicotine patches take the edge off. You can gradually reduce the dose. Great recommendation for the person who wanted to quit smoking, for Carrie. Another not smoking tip: set goals around what you want to do instead. So I said that I couldn't think of a thing you would want to replace, but maybe you could, right? I've never smoked cigarettes, so I don't know what that urge is like, but maybe you could come up with something, Carrie, that would be like a proactive goal that you would set in place of smoking. Andrea recently got engaged in February. Congrats. Haven't started to plan the wedding at all. Do not worry. Do not worry. It's so overwhelming. The only thing you know is the type of venue that you'd like, cheap outdoors. Where should I start? So I would recommend starting with buying a Not magazine. That's my first step. In the front of all the magazines, they have like a timeline that you should follow. Step one is really going to be when do you want to get married? And this was one of those things that like people were confused that I did it this way, because there's really two ways to go about it. There's, you have a date, you have a specific date that you want. Maybe you have a complicated schedule. You're a teacher, you want to get married in the summer, whatever it is. And then you go look at venues. And if they're not available on your date, then you don't even look at it. We did it the other way around. We picked a season, and then we toured venues, and when we picked the venue we liked, we just picked a date that they had available. Sorry, my nose is like super itchy today. The only things that you need really before you start researching venues, you need an estimated budget. What is your budget? Conversation with your fiance, your parents, if they're involved. What's the budget? What is the approximate guest count? You can finalize the actual guest list later, but you need a guess, because you want to look at venues that fit within that guest count. Sorry, guys, my nose. I do not know what's going on, and why is it so itchy? Budget, guest count. And then what's really, before you start planning, it should be like, what is the most important thing to you when it comes to the wedding, you and your fiance? Just keeping that in mind as you start to plan things. Then you go with the venues. Then you start researching venues and go look at them in person. Andrea, or Megan, you're having the same problem. Did you also get engaged? That's exciting. Yes, Melissa, venue, DJ or band, photographer, videographer, and catering. So agreed that those are like the big things. We didn't book we did venue, photographer, and then kind of took a break and like got those two big things, and then kind of took a back seat. Then we went and did all those other things. So those are the things that we'll book quickly for sure. And if one of those things is really, really important to you, then book that right away, especially those first three, because they can only do one wedding that date. Whereas catering, sometimes they can do more than one wedding on a given day. My only wedding advice is to spend the money on a good photographer. That's what you have to look at forever. I regret not doing that. I agree completely. And a videographer. I mean, I like having the video. I like video clearly. So, oh, yeah, the other Andrea's comment. Okay, using your planner consistently. I thought you were married. I was not sure. Andrea, my other wedding advice as a fellow planner girl is, there's a lot of beautiful wedding planners out there. Don't don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to be like, I've got to find the perfect wedding planner. It's got to work for me. I used a Google spreadsheet and the internet for most of my wedding planning. I bought a bunch of stuff and I did not use a bunch of stuff. Now, the Knot is a really great resource, and that the like timeline they put in their magazine, they also have magazines for specific locations. So every time like my stepmom went to the grocery store, I was like, is there a new Knot for South Texas at the grocery store? And if there is, I want it. I wanted the Knot that was specific to my location, which I couldn't get because I was planning a wedding where I didn't live. If you don't know that, if you're new here or you didn't follow along with that, I live in New York City and we got married outside of Austin. So I did read a lot of magazines, but in terms of like a planner, I couldn't figure out one that worked for me. And it was not it. So don't put a lot of pressure on yourself for that. I'm trying to think. There was another last wedding tip. It is going to drive me bananas. What is her name? There's a YouTube channel I used a lot. Jamie, I think it's her last name started with a W. I will leave it. I'll find it and leave it linked below after the live is over. But she has a lot of great YouTube content, especially on DIY type stuff, saving money on things. And like, I watched basically all of her videos and it was very, very helpful when it came to planning the wedding. Everybody else knows because she's the one, Jamie Wolfer. Yep. I mean, like she was amazing. So helpful. So helpful. But that's so exciting. It's such an exciting time. I'm not gonna, enjoy the process. Like Melissa said, I'm not gonna pretend I'm not glad I'm not gonna pretend I'm not glad it's over. But there were pieces of wedding planning that I did really, really enjoy, even though our wedding planning experience was very unique. I just explained that to a new friend yesterday, telling her about like what we planned and then postponed, and our COVID trip to Austin to find our caterer and cake, and just all of the weird experiences we had. But it was still perfect. It was great. So hopefully some of that helps. And if you have any specific questions about it, please feel free to DM me or ask me. I'm happy to answer. It's hard to do like in general wedding planning things, but okay. Melissa, I'm glad I'm not alone. You enjoyed it too, but wasn't broken up when it was over. Okay. I thought maybe that was just me because it was also 2.5 years, but yeah. It was not too sad when I no longer had to think about a wedding. All right. I think I'm all caught up on comments, planners, goals, weddings, any other questions. It can be about literally anything. Obviously, weddings are fresh on my mind, so I am happy to answer those questions, but also happy to talk planners or goals, whatever, books. Oh, Kylie, 100%. Our favorite wedding expense was a day of coordinator. We could just relax and know that someone else would tell us where to be and when. Yeah. So our venue came with a day of coordinator, which was also really nice because she knew the venue. The reminder tip here, if you ask me like the 3 things that went wrong the wedding day, which by the way, none of those 3 things are like, they didn't impact the day negatively. Like not things that I'm like, oh my gosh, it was the worst. Like the 3 things that went wrong. One of them was making sure all of your other, when you have like a DIY type venue, all of your other vendors, the day of coordinator gets the day of coordinator's phone number instead of your personal phone number or your husband's phone number. So that was one of the things that went wrong. Our late night snack company did not get our day of coordinator's phone, and so it didn't get there in time. So. Andrea, what are you reading right now? So I actually finished 2 books yesterday. Guys, I forgot how much reading I get done when I take the subway, and I'm going to dance 3 days a week now. Now, most of the time, all of the time, the subway home, I'm with another person, but the subway there, I have 45-ish minutes by myself 3 times a week, and I'm reading all the things. So yesterday I finished Built to Belong is the nonfiction book I finished. And so then this morning I started How to Break Up with Your Phone, which I've had on my shelf for a very long time and thought it was time to read it. And then for fiction, I finished Layla, which is a Colleen Hoover book. It's not my favorite by her. And then this morning I downloaded, I haven't actually started it yet, another Colleen Hoover book. I can't remember what it is. It was whatever one was on Kindle Unlimited. So I need to figure out I'm going to download, or I'm trying to pick a series to download for the honeymoon for fiction and to figure out what it is. The other book that I'm going to start reading, it's literally sitting on my desk, is the Matthew McConaughey book, which I've heard a lot of really great things about. So my stepmom and my dad have been raving about this book for months whenever they read it. And my father-in-law just read it, and he texted Sam. He's so funny. He sent Sam a text that was like, I just finished this book by a University of Texas alumni that I think you and Laken would enjoy. So I'm going to send you a copy of it. It's coming from Amazon. Keep an eye out. And we thought like maybe it was Emmanuel Acho's book, or maybe it was he didn't say who. He just said a University of Texas alumni, and then this is the book that showed up. Sam just finished it over the weekend, and so I'm going to start that. I'm going to take I'm hoping that is the nonfiction book I take with me. I'm going to try and finish the Break Up With Your Phone Before We Leave and take that nonfiction and then my Kindle with a fiction series with me to Thailand. Sorry, that was way more about reading than just like what are you reading right now. Andrea, I watched a video about replacing social media scrolling with micro journaling. Every time he would want to scroll social media, he opened his notes app first and wrote what was on his mind. I love that idea. That is super interesting. If you remember what it was called, I would love to watch it. And then the other Andrea, that was in my suggested videos. It was not in my suggested videos. I want to watch it though. Claire, tips on creating an AM PM routine when your days look very different day to day. I travel a lot for work, so having trouble creating a routine when my environment resources are often different. Yeah, this is going to be really, really difficult. So I want to start with that, not to scare you and be like, you can't have a routine, because you 100% can. But I want to tell you that it's not going to be as easy as somebody like me who can, not only am I in the same space every day, but I am in complete control of my own schedule. So if I want my routine to be shorter or longer, I am in control of that. You likely don't have that benefit. So here's what you're going to do. First off, you're going to pick one to start with. We're going to just pick one, AM or PM. We're going to start there. Number two, you're going to list all the things that you could possibly put in an AM or PM routine, all the things that you could possibly include that you would be excited about. Then I want you to kind of break them up into categories. So one is, you could do it anywhere, right? You could do it something like brushing your teeth. That could be done whether you're home or away. Then one category is going to be like only away. Maybe there are certain things that you would include in a morning routine only away. And then one that is only at home. And so what you're going to have essentially is different routines for different spots. So you have your non-negotiables, the things that you do in both places. It's the same thing you would do with any other implementation, which I have a video on implementing morning routines, is you're going to one step at a time. But you have your non-negotiables, the things that you do every time. And then you have the things that you do when you're not there. And then the things you do when you're home. If you have a third spot, if there's like another location, like maybe you have when I'm away and I have time in the morning version. And then you have when I'm away and I don't have time in the morning version, right? Same thing at home. Maybe you have an at home and I have lots of time, and at home I don't have lots of time. Like, routine doesn't have to mean that you're doing the exact same steps in the exact same way in the exact same order every single day. What it means is that you're doing something consistently that's helping you make progress on your goals. To me, that's what routines mean. So if that looks different in all these different places, that's totally fine. That's when I love apps like Routinery, where I can map out what those different routines would look like and click play on the one that makes the most sense. I had that was that last season or the season before for dance, where I had two sets of PM routines. I had like my PM routine, I am home and I have time, and I have my PM routine, I am trying to get in bed as quickly as possible, right? Like I had two versions of it, and I was in the same space. So I think setting up what those different ones would look like, and then again, not trying to implement it all at once, baby steps, implementing little things at a time, and being flexible when you have to be. Ooh, thank you for the book recommendation, Megan. The Personal Librarian by Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray. Tina, you're listening to Green Lights on Audible. Yeah, I have heard the Audible version is awesome as well. Okay, another recommendation for the Audible. That's, yeah, my stepmom did that. But like, I don't listen to audiobooks at all. So, and I much prefer the physical book. Oh, here's the video recommendation. Literally called, I replaced social media with microjournaling for 1 year. That's amazing. 1 whole year. Wow. I'm going to have to check that video out. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Obviously, I've talked about it a lot in my goals videos and like other places, but spending less time on social media is a huge goal of mine that I'm working on. Yay. Coffee for the win. All right. I'm all caught up on comments. What other questions do you have? Anything else you want to chat about? Any other book recommendations I am happy to take, especially if you have a fiction series recommendation. That is really what I'm looking for on my trip. And I don't think I'm ready for A Court of Thorns and Roses yet. I don't think I'm ready yet. I did have one. Cindy recommended The Passage to me, but that's only 3. I don't know if that's quite enough. I don't know. I mean, it's a 2-week trip. I can always download more. That's the beauty of the Kindle, right? Is that I can always download more books if I need to. What kind of fiction? I know it's a good question, Lisa. I mean, I mostly prefer like young adult or like, what is futuristic called? Like, what is that genre called? I forget. There's like a better word for it, but I'm open to a lot of things. I'm open to a lot of things. Andrea, I would love to create a YouTube video, but I'm not sure what to do. I tend to have a lot of different things going on at any one time. Great question. So I have a whole playlist of like YouTube channel tips. My first recommendation is just to get started. If you have an idea of a video you want to make it and upload it and see how it goes. See how it feels for you making it, see if people enjoy watching it, and just see how it goes. When you say you have a lot of different things, do you mean like you have a lot of ideas or things you'd like to share on YouTube? Or do you have a lot of different, you mean you have too much going on that you don't think you have time for a channel? Answer that for me and then I'll elaborate. Oh, Tina, I say this almost every week, but I clean out a cabinet or a drawer while you watch or listen. I love that so much. Thank you for sharing. Ooh, a recommendation. Tamara Pierce. Thanks, Carrie. Not sure the name of the series, but the book is called Red Queen. I feel like I have heard of that, Melissa. I haven't read it. Dystopian. That's what it is. That's like a style I really like. Megan, any insider info you can share on the sneak peek from the Cultivated Planner? No, not yet. I'm sorry. A Discovery of Witches. Tina, I've never heard of that. I'm going to have to go back in and like rewatch I'm popping them up. Okay, Laken. I'm going to write them all down. Jess, do you have any resources, books, podcasts for moving, especially decluttering? Because I would love to get rid of stuff. Yeah. If you have a decluttering goal, reading the book, Decluttering at the Speed of Life. That is where I would start. I listened to it. I read the hard copy and then I listened to it while I packed again. Highly, highly recommend. And then the only other tip with moving is the color coordinated tape on the boxes for different rooms. We live in a small New York City apartment and it made a huge difference for us. I can only imagine if you're moving into a big space. Highly, highly recommend. Ooh, some more recommendations. The Lux series, 5 books with a spinoff, the Brown Sisters trilogy. Futuristic can be more positive or negative. I don't really have a preference. When I say, like, I think of like The Hunger Games, Divergent, like that's what I think of when dystopian is really what I meant when I was talking about like futuristic, not like space. Okay, back to Andrea's YouTube channel question. I do a lot of different tasks. I work as a contractor and I support a lot of businesses. I think I would do lifestyle now in order to give updates on everything you do. Then that sounds like a great idea. I think there is no one right or wrong. And I feel like I explain this a lot, but there's really, when it comes to creating content on the internet, whether this is YouTube, Instagram, whatever it is you're creating, here's the circle of the things that you like to create. Here are things that you like to talk about. Here's the circle of things that people want to watch. You are looking for the place where they overlap. Now, that doesn't mean that you're sometimes going to create stuff that's just for you. And it doesn't mean that you're sometimes going to create stuff that is you don't really enjoy and it's just for people. But the goal is to have most of it overlap. But you are not going to know where anything falls into those circles until you start creating content. You're not going to know if you like posting that kind of thing and like filming that kind of video until you do it. You don't know if your audience or an audience is going to want to watch those things until you try. So for now, you start uploading and seeing how it goes. My first year, I uploaded a lot of random things. Some of those things were things that people requested. Some of those things were things I just wanted to talk about. And over time, I have found where that sweet spot is. Now, again, I'm not saying that everything I upload falls in that middle. It doesn't. There are things I upload that are really just for me. Not as much on YouTube anymore that are just for me. It was more, but there are things on Instagram I upload that are just for me. And then I don't, in terms of uploading just because people want to watch them, I do still do it sometimes. I try not to do it as much anymore, but I do it. But you won't know until you start trying. An Ember in the Ashes, the Wayward Children series. Oh, I have read Delirium. Very good. Yes. The Lucinda Riley series of the Seven Sisters. Okay. Love that. Darkest Mind. Oh my God. So many options, y'all. All I'm going to do later today is like Google all these series and figure out which one I want to download to start for on our trip. Oh, the author is Victoria Avard and it's called the Red Queen series. Okay. There are 5 books. Also the Broken Earth trilogy. Awesome. You guys are the best. Sarah, I'm reading the Outlander series and they're great books. So I tried to get into Outlander the show and was not successful. So I am not sure that I'm going to like the books. I didn't like reading Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones. And I feel like that probably says something about whether or not I would like Outlander, but I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong about that. And I do want to read Wheel of Time, but Cindy told me to watch the show first before I read the books. So I'm going to wait on that. The Lunar Chronicles. I struggled to get into this one. I read the first one and then I tried to read the second one and was like not really into it at all. And I thought I would love it because it is the combination of Disney and like a dystopian society. And I was like, this is perfect. And I did not like them. I don't know what my problem was. It was a long time ago too, though. I've heard the Inheritance game series is good. I have not had a chance to borrow it from the library. Okay. I will say, speaking of the library, this is also one of those things, right? I set a goal last year not to buy any books, and it was awesome. I did not buy any books. I use the library a lot for that goal. This year, I have let go of that. I still am not really buying nonfiction books because I just have so many in person that so many that I need to read. But for fiction, I was getting uninspired because I was basing my fiction reading just on what was available at the library instead of just buying what I want. So now I have budgeted again to buy books on my Kindle for fiction, which has really helped keep me motivated this year in terms of fiction. I did also sign up for Kindle Unlimited, and that I kind of like supplement that. I'll like buy a series and read it and then like read 1 or 2 on Kindle Unlimited, and like buy a series, read it, read 1 or 2 on Kindle Unlimited. And that's kind of how I've been dealing with my fiction reading this year, which has been most of my reading. I think I finished like 2, maybe 3 nonfiction books, mostly fiction. Jamie, I do like fantasy. What is the 2 different phrases? Cindy and I talked about this. Like, I liked Throne of Glass, loved it, thought it was great. I obviously love Harry Potter, which is a form of fantasy. But I've never gotten into like what I think people would consider like true. There's another word that goes in front of fantasy. That's like true fantasy. Susan, I'm so glad that you're able to join a live. Welcome. Have I gotten any great deals from Prime Day? No, I have not. There's just nothing that we need right now. We're trying not to buy things before we move. And so I'm ignoring. Anytime I see somebody post on Instagram, I'm like, swipe, 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 swipe. I don't want to see your Prime deals. The only thing that I might buy, and only because a friend sent me the link, is a like massive 36 pack of paper mate flares, because we all know I will use those at some point. Otherwise, no. Oh, Sarah, I tried to watch Outlander and didn't love it. But then after I read the first book, I liked the show so much more. Interesting. Okay, maybe I'll give it another go. Another recommendation, Mike Riley and All the Lonely People. Both stories are based in the UK. Okay. I'm here for stories based in other places. One of my favorite, actually, I think, did the new one come out? My favorite series I read last year was the Akata Witch series. Oh my gosh. So cool. Loved it. I think there were two. I read two, and I think the third one has come out, and I need to buy it. High fantasy. That's what it is. I've never really read any high fantasy, so I don't know if I really like it. Jessica, I bought that 36 pack of flares and thought of you. That might be the one thing I buy during Prime Days. Also, can we just admit it's not Prime Day, it's Prime Days. Andrea, do you have a new home picked out? We are moving to Chicago, if that's what you mean by home. Like location-wise, we are moving to Chicago in February. In terms of actual home, it's a big city. We're not going to be able to really start looking at places till at least December, which is my least favorite part of living in a city. I would love to look at apartments now. I can look at them, but they're not going to be the ones that are available when I'm actually moving. Ooh, okay. A couple things about Outlander. Outlander books are definitely better than the show. Interesting. Maybe I will try the books. The thing to know is the first book is a lot of history and they get better as you go. That's also interesting. And that is also what I also recently, I just said also like a million times, heard about not Throne of Glass. So I read Throne of Glass, loved it. Tried to get into A Court of Thorns and Roses, struggled hard. And then if you know, I love Kendra from The Lazy Genius. She is the one that turned me on to Throne of Glass. She just recently finished A Court of Thorns and Roses, and she said the same thing about that first book. That the first book, she's like, it's like 75% backstory, and you just have to power through. So I think I also need to just do that, right? I need to just power through. Ooh, a new paddleboard for Prime Day. One of your goals that you were saving up for this year. Aubrey, that is so fun. Paddleboarding. Andrea, will Sam be doing the same job in Chicago? Yes. For those that don't know, my husband is a financial advisor and planner. And because of the pandemic, his whole business went virtual. He only meets with clients via Zoom now. And he is just going to pick up and move. And it's going to be so great. It's going to be so great. Definitely for us, one of the massive silver linings to come out of the last 2 years was him not only realizing how easily his business could go virtual, but implementing it and making it happen. So, yep, we will just be picking up and moving, doing the same jobs. Another series recommendations, the Morgan Crow series. Reminds me a bit of Harry Potter, but it's middle grade, so easy to read. Awesome. Oh, Andrea, you bought a new Kindle Paperweight. I can't wait for it to get here. I got a new one for Christmas last year. That was one of my things I asked for, so I could have a new, I think I just said paperweight, but obviously I meant Paperwhite. Carrie, I just noticed we have the same nail color. It's Dazzle Dry. Obviously, I know you're shocked. I don't know what it's called. It's like a shiny blue. I love it. I love it. It makes me feel very summery. It's like ocean blue, calming. Mm-hmm. All right. All caught up again. Thank you for all the book recommendations. I'm excited to go make a list and research and get something downloaded before we leave. By the way, we're not leaving right away. We still have another one of these next week. We don't leave till Thursday. So you're not rid of me just yet. Any other questions? if there are no other questions, we can wrap it up and I will let you get on with your day. I appreciate all of you being here live. If you have any last minute questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, but I am going to, here we go. My computer's just taking a second. Okay. How do you integrate bigger life goals that may be several years down the road into your yearly and quarterly goals? For example, moving to Chicago. Great question, Megan. I don't have a scientific exact answer for you, right? I don't have an exact answer. A couple things. Number one, I do have a running list of future goals, right? Like future things I want to do someday. Some of those include things like being a mom and moving to Chicago and buying a house, right? Things that like are not this year type goals, maybe not even next year type goals, but are like at some point in the future type goals that we will do, I will do. And when I set my goals for the year, I keep those things in mind, right? Some of you might have been able to guess the timeline of Chicago. I had not announced it publicly, but when, putting the New York City bucket list goal on my goals for 2022, kind of was hinting at the fact that like the Chicago move was inevitable. We've known the February date for a while. I have just been I didn't want to tell the world about it for a number of reasons. So I pick goals that can help me work towards that, right? I'm trying to think of another example, but like I pick goals that I know are going to help get me towards that next goal. Even like implementing business systems as a business goal, that's a stepping stone goal for starting a family and being able to have a business that runs a little bit more automated while I'm being a mom, right? So just keeping that list so you're not forgetting about them. And just when you pick goals, think like, is there a goal that I could set this year that's kind of a stepping stone to that goal? Do you have any must-haves for your new place? Emma, I like this question. And I think I may have said these on Instagram, but I'll share them again. So not many. Number one, we need a 4-bedroom. We need 4 doors. As I just have said, we both work from home full-time now and are planning to start a family. So we need, they don't have to be 4 bedrooms. Like it could be 3 bedrooms and an office. Like they all don't need closets, but we need 4 doors. 2 bathrooms, same concept. We want to start a family, and I really just think we'll feel like we can stay in a place longer if we have 2 bathrooms. As close to my mom as possible would be ideal. My mom lives in Lincoln Park. She's actually moving. Oh my gosh, I haven't shared this at most places. My mom is moving, so it's still within Lincoln Park. She's not going very far, but she so as close to her as possible, and within a certain budget, which we have not figured out what our budget's going to be. We need to look at our budget and decide what the number is, but that's it, basically it. And then I have to require cats. So that's not hard to find, but it does. Like if I randomly will look, like I will go on Zillow and click rent, and I will put in some number for rent, and I will put, 4 beds, 2 baths, and then you toggle cat, and I lose like I think 20% of them. So those are the must-haves. But yeah, and we're looking for just like a walk-up. It doesn't have to be a fancy building because my mom has a fancy building and all those amenities, which is nice. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm also sad. It's the most bittersweet news in the entire universe for me. Like I'm happy and sad all at the same time. Jessica, she is moving in the same, you may have typed this question before I elaborated. For those listening to the replay, she asked, does your mom is moving too? Does it make it more difficult, or does she know where she's going? She's staying in the same neighborhood. She's just moving buildings. So makes it very, very easy. And then my siblings are all settled. Like they're all on a lease now, and like nobody is moving. And so like when I look at a map, like with where my siblings are, and then like our good friends that live in Chicago, we've got a couple of them. I'm like, okay, where can we live that's like as close to all of these people as possible? So how long have you lived in New York City? 9.5 years. Yeah, I graduated college early in December of 2012, moved here January of 2013. So I will hit 10 years right before we leave, which according to some people makes you officially a New Yorker. I don't know if that's true, but I will hit 10 years in January. Again, so bittersweet. Struggling with mental health ish and stress. I want to start, but after work, the most I do are resting and sleeping. I want to start my physical activity. Any suggestions to start? No energy most days. This is a great question. And especially with everything we have been through and everything going on in the world right now, you're not alone in feeling like your energy levels are down. Now, the thing that you're asking about, which is physical activity, I will say it feels counterproductive, but upping your physical activity does have a positive impact on your energy in the long run. So, couple of things here. Number one is maybe after work isn't the best option. Could you do some sort of physical activity in the morning before work or during lunch? Doesn't have, like, you do not have to break a sweat to make it worth it. That's the other thing about physical activity. We all think like it has to be some like super intensive hit sweaty cardio class to make it worth movement. Going for a walk totally counts and is completely beneficial. So it doesn't have to be intense. Is there another time that you could do it? If the answer is no, I cannot do it anything but after work, then you start small. And I would start with like a weekly, like 1 day a week. That's the goal. 2 days a week, and up it a little bit at a time, a little bit. And when I say like I'm 10 minutes, 1 time a week, and start working your way up. The other thing that I would recommend is if your energy levels are fluctuating. I don't know. I can't really tell from your question if this is an everyday thing or if there's some days and then you have this all or nothing mindset that if you can't have physical activity every day, then it's not worth it. That's when I would set like a 3 times a week goal. And then on the days that you have no energy, you don't do anything. And then the days that you have some energy, you do something. The last thing I'm going to say here is the spectrum example. I give this example where when it comes to most things, there are the extremes. So, right, one end of the extreme is I have all the energy, I feel good, good night's sleep and a cup of coffee kind of energy. And then the other end of the extreme is I have zero energy, nothing. I can't even keep my eyes open. Most of the time, we're somewhere in between. And maybe you're closer to this edge, right? Closer to the no energy, I can't even keep my eyes open. But you're probably not all the way there all the time. So realizing that you're not all the way to the end, and can you do a little bit of something, right? Like maybe this end is like 30 minutes of physical activity and this end is 0. If you're right here, can you do 5? Can you do 5 minutes? Can you go for a 5-minute walk? And just focus on those little things and using a little bit of energy, and it will add up. Which Peloton do you have? With us moving, we will have more space, and I'm so tempted. The price tag is steep. Is it worth it, or would a cheap bike be the same? So I have the Bike Plus. They also have a payment plan that is no interest. And so per month, it really wasn't that much. Now, again, we also had really pricey gym memberships before we bought the Peloton. So in January 2020, right after we got engaged, we both joined an expensive gym. And honestly, it was worth it. It was 100% worth it. We were going to classes 4 to 5 times a week. We were showering there. It was so relaxing. Like, we loved it. And then it obviously shut down. And so when they reopened in the fall, they weren't doing classes. They were just like open as a gym. And we were like, well, this is not worth it, because we really want to do the classes. So when we canceled and bought our Peloton, we actually saved an immense amount of money on a monthly basis. So for us, it was worth it. For me, especially, I love my Peloton. Like, I use it almost every day. I love it. You can do it with a cheaper bike. Absolutely. My parents, that's what they have at their, like, they have a Peloton. They have the old, like, way older version of the Peloton at their, like, the house they live in most of the time. And then they have a house down on the coast, and they have like a way less expensive bike down there. Luckily, my dad is a numbers nerd like me, and he did all the math. The hardest part about using a different bike is all the math crunching that you have to do to figure out like what the resistance is on your other bike. But my dad did that for ours, so I know the numbers for that bike. But just that is something I would consider. I think it's worth it, but worth is going to be different to every person. Andrea, I heard on a podcast to set up your AM and PM routine when you don't have a lot of energy. That way you will still get the things you need to get done, but when you have more energy, you can get more done. At least you can be happy with yourself with getting your must-do items. It's good advice. Oh. All right. Holy moly, it's almost been an hour. Where does the time go, y'all? I don't know. All right, let's wrap it up with my final question for you, which is, What is one thing that you will do this week to make progress on your goals? It doesn't have to be huge, but what is one small step that you will get done? Not maybe, not kind of, not if, this, that, then the other. What is one thing that you will get done this week to make progress on your goals? Let us know in the chat. If you're here live, let us know in the chat. And if you are watching the replay and you've made it this far, you're a superstar. Let us know in the comments. Getting back into meditation, 5 minutes a day to get back to it. Love that. Working on getting some inventory made for the craft fair. Carrie, I love you shared that in the Patreon group. I'm so excited for you. That is so fun. So fun. Figure out your new planner setup. Andrea, you've got this. Anybody else want to share their one baby step? While I block the random troll on Facebook. Sometimes, I don't know. I do share this live. Most of you watch it on YouTube, but I do share it on Facebook. Going to your county library to get a library card. Had a town one, but this will give you more access. That's awesome. I love that. Keep working on your morning routine little by little. Oil your new butcher block countertops. Oh, Heather, that is amazing. Unsubscribing to email lists as they come in. Oh my gosh, Lisa, I feel that one. Oh, Susan, I missed yours. Trying to start a strength training routine, starting small. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, so small. Edit a video that you've had on your phone for a while. Yes, do it. Just do it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Done is better than perfect. Pretty much every video I've uploaded when I edited them myself had an issue, and I just kept moving. Put your school calendars in your planner and your Google Cal. Small step, but I'm sure that's really helpful to see. All right. As always, the reminder, y'all, that it doesn't have to be huge to make an impact and make progress on your goals. If you wouldn't mind giving this video a thumbs up before you head out, I would greatly appreciate that. And if you're new here, click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, focused on helping you achieve your goals. Thank you so much for watching.